The first four Scream movies came out over a decade ago, so it seems like a personal problem, but spoiler alert in this episode. Enjoy.
As a queer femme autistic horror fan, I often find myself having opinions that aren't entirely well received by the community. Midsummer is not a good for her movie. Lisa Frankenstein knows what it is and executes it perfectly. Urban Legends is better than I Know What You Did Last Summer. In the 2010s, however, my steadfast opinion that Scream 4 was the best Scream sequel wasn't just an unpopular opinion, it was justification to dismiss my opinion about basically every other film in the genre. I still decided Scream 4 being a masterpiece was a hill I would die on. Besides a couple scary movie nights and one fateful viewing of House of a Thousand Corpses when I was 11, I wasn't really a fan of the horror genre growing up. Looking back, it may have been that viewing of House of a Thousand Corpses that deterred me from exploring the genre further in my teen years. Just no responsible adult rented me that movie. I was going over to a friend's house for a sleepover. We asked her older sister if she would rent us a scary movie, um, because my friend's parents would not. So her sister went to Blockbuster and rented House of a Thousand Corpses because she thought it would be funny to rent us something that unhinged. And me and my friend were never the same. Moving on. At 19, I decided I'd give horror another try, and I invited one of my coworkers from Starbucks over to watch The Ring and Funny Games.
No, hard pass.
I have genuinely no idea how we settled on those two films. All I know is that I lived in a studio apartment alone at the time, and I slept with the lights on for like a week after. Once again, my honest attempt to enjoy the horror genre had fully backfired. But only a couple months later, my horror-loving boyfriend would move into my apartment with me. At first, I was extremely dedicated to my stance on never watching anything super scary ever again. On a quest to change my mind, however, my boyfriend convinced me to watch the first Scream movie, telling me that it was more of a satire and a breakdown of the genre that may actually quell some of my fears. He also very wisely compared the Scream story structure to an Agatha Christie mystery or a Sherlock Holmes, and ya bitch loves a whodunit. And after we watched it, my special interest in horror was born. We didn't have reliable internet at the time because it was like 2011 and I was really broke. So we hopped on a bus, went to our favorite used media store, and picked up 2 and 3 for like $2 each. Hopped back on a bus, went home, watched both. We'd had to leave the fourth one behind because it was still fairly new and it wasn't on sale yet and there was no used copies of it and we could barely afford to eat. So already the fact that we were going to spend $5 on 2 DVDs and likely a joint on the way home to smoke while we watched those DVDs was already a poor choice. So we left the fourth one behind. But my boyfriend assured me that it was the worst in the franchise, so it wasn't a big deal. Fortunately for me, because Scream hadn't been super well received by OG fans of the originals, the overstock of DVDs at my local media store went on sale pretty quickly. And when they did, I scooped it up. For those of you who do not watch films over and over and over again, you know, normal people, I will give a quick refresher of the plot of Scream 4. It's been years since the last Ghostface killings, and a seemingly well-adjusted Sidney Prescott returns to Woodsboro to promote her new self-help book. Once she arrives, a slew of Ghostface murders start taking place, all with startling similarities to the original killings. Besides Sidney, this new Ghostface seems to be targeting a specific group of teenagers, helmed by Jill Roberts, Sidney's cousin. The group is full of film nerds who explain to Sidney and Gale that likely the killer is attempting to remake the original, but bigger, better, gorier, and filmed to be uploaded later for a captivated internet audience. The climax finds everyone hanging out at a house after a party, just like in the first Scream movie, and then the final bloodbath occurs, followed by Sidney ultimately defeating Ghostface again. Though Scream 4 has definitely gained a cult following in the last few years, when I first watched it about a year after its theatrical release, it felt like I was the only person who absolutely adored the premise and thought that they executed it perfectly. My boyfriend assured me that the only reason I thought that was because I hadn't seen enough horror. I adamantly disagreed. But in my 20s, I was incredibly used to mediocre men letting me know why my opinions were wrong. At the time that I first saw Scream 4, I'd probably only ever seen maybe 10 truly horror films. As I said, I was traumatized early on by my friend's dick sister who rented us House of a Thousand Corpses, which, sidebar, watched years later with a friend, like years later, like 20 years later, semi-recently, and that movie is actually super great. But I digress. I've always been a Halloween bitch, so I tended to stick with spooky instead of downright scary. Like, I'd watch Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow, but like, I wasn't gonna sit down and watch Saw. Fuck no. But my viewing of other film genres had always been excessive, so I understood general structure and tropes of films. Shocking. I was also incredibly into television in the 2000s and 2010s, and I found the casting of Scream 4 to be a perfect encapsulation of the pop culture vibe of the time. The opening alone, which is not taking itself seriously in any way, shape, or form, has cameos from Shanae Grimes, known for her role in the millennial classic Degrassi, Lucy Hale, who was making teen history on Pretty Little Liars, Anna Paquin, who was starring in True Blood at the time, and Kristen Bell, aka Gossip Girl. All in the first 5 minutes. A clever nod to the kind of celebrity-obsessed teen culture that we were living in the 2010s. And subtly hinting at the themes that they were going to explore in the rest of the film. The witty and timely opening of Scream 4 is followed up by a slew of other iconic actors of the moment. Emma Roberts, who every millennial knew from the Y2K classic Aquamarine, was introduced as Sydney's cousin Jill, one of the first steps in her long journey into horror. Additionally, we see Alison Brie away from her role as Sweet Annie on Community, the cult classic TV show about community college misfits that was also airing at the time. My favorite appearance, though, is by the undeniably delightful Hayden Panettiere, who is completely obsessed with Sydney's past and the stab movies that her past have inspired. Hayden likely filmed Scream 4 closely following her role on Heroes as the cheerleader who had the ability to heal herself. Sidebar. While Heroes goes completely off the rails, the first season is actually really worth checking out. It was fun as fuck.
Save the cheerleader, save the world!
Besides the fresh new faces in Scream 4, fans are still given a strong storyline with the remaining legacy characters, Gale, Sydney, and Dewey. Yet focuses in on a new generation of media-obsessed teens who have a toxic habit of glorifying gruesome events for their own entertainment. There's definitely an argument from some longtime Scream fans that the fourth film not centering the Legacy 3 was a mistake, but I adamantly disagree. Kevin Williamson cleverly executed a script that has Sydney, Gale, and Dewey setting the foundation for a new generation of teens to be stalked and killed by their very own Ghostface. When a famous horror franchise gets a reboot, it's rare that fans get to see the original legacy characters ushering in a new generation, but that's exactly what we got in Scream 4. Other critics of the film said that it too closely mirrored the first Scream movie, or that the cheesy, campy factor was pushed too far. To those critics I say, have you seen the other movies? The setup of Scream 4 mirroring Scream is the literal point of the story. Jill wants to recreate the events of the original massacre, but this time she wants to make sure that the world sees it so that she can become famous.
How do you think people become famous anymore? You don't have to achieve anything. You just gotta have fucked up shit happen to you.
It's simple, yes, but what it says about our sensibilities towards violence and our eagerness to consume it as entertainment was really relevant in 2011 and probably more relevant now in 2026. Go see Faces of Death. Sure, the original had commentary about these themes as well, but the fourth film redefines those themes for a far more media-savvy, violence-obsessed society. When I was in high school, the amount of sensationalized videos I saw with the events of 9/11 cut together with like the saddest song you'd ever heard playing over the video was excessive. And the views were always through the roof. I knew people in high school who thought it was funny to send videos of snuff to people and not let them know that what they were consuming was very, very real. There was also something that existed in the late 2000s, early 2010s called the Pain Olympics. I am not going to go into that. It is worse than it sounds. Don't look it up. In a less horrific capacity, we loved reality television contestants that had the saddest backstory you ever heard. If there was a tragic event, a violent video, or a sad, depressed person singing on America's Got Talent, that video was shared like Skittles. And that's impressive because at the time, a lot of us didn't have phones with internet. So our friends were like copy pasting, sending it to our freaking MySpace. It's just, and the point being, it felt like more than any generation before, Y2K had birthed a society captivated by violence and suffering. And Jill felt like the perfect type of villain to follow up the decade, a true product of the 2000s. As far as the campy, cheesy allegations go, I ask again, have you seen the movies? I've always felt since the very beginning of the franchise that Kevin Williamson's writing cleverly weaves together whodunit and slasher elements with a healthy dose of self-awareness and humor. Honestly, if you don't have the underlying comedy, it's not really a Scream movie, is it?
Oh!
Did you see this, Stewie? I haven't had one of these in a year and a half. Someone's gonna pay for this.
You're never alone.
Please share with us, please.
I was up for Princess Leia. I was this close. So who gets it? The one who sleeps with George Lucas.
So Scream 4 manages to have a fresh feeling without abandoning the cast or roots of the first film. And it also felt timely and relatable when it was released in 2011. For me, though, the true triumph of Scream 4 is Emma Roberts as Jill. The first Ghostface since Skeet Ulrich's Billy and Matthew Lillard's Stu to put her whole wagon wheel Watusi into her big villain reveal. I enjoy the reveal in Scream 2. It's fun with the right amount of wacky. Scream 3 I like right up until the end, when Roman being revealed as Ghostface creates a bizarre shift in canon, and frankly, he's just not that entertaining as a villain. But 10 years later, enter Jill fucking Roberts.
Surprised?
I'm not that big of a fan of Emma Roberts in general, and I'm not here to defend her character as a person or to defend the nepotism claims about why she's so famous. I am here to say she goes all in for the last act of Scream 4, and it makes the entire film.
This has never been about killing you. It's about becoming you. It's sick, right?
Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm always good at picking up on the clues of who the killer's going to be in a horror film. Granted, after watching a few hundred horror films in the last decade or so, I've gotten pretty good at recognizing tropes and trends. But when I saw Scream 4, I was still fairly new to the genre. Even if I had been a well-seasoned fan at the time, I truly believe that I wouldn't have seen Jill as Ghostface coming. I definitely had my suspicions about Rory Culkin's character Charlie for the whole movie because his vibes are just like off, and honestly, he scares me. But Jill was a surprise. The entire movie, she does an incredible job at coming off as a obviously scared, sad, emotionally vulnerable girl with boy problems. So, like a regular teenager. Then, as soon as the mask comes off, she is a level of unhinged comparable only to the crazed, homoerotic, blood-soaked confession of Stu and Billy in the first film.
Oh, no. Tell that to Cotton Weary. You wouldn't believe how easy he was to frame. Watch a few movies, take a few notes.
After Jill has given us, arguably, one of the best villain reveals of all time, we get to see her commitment to the bit reach new levels as she absolutely annihilates herself physically to convince everyone she was one of the victims of the killer herself. The self-ass-kicking does not need to last as long as it does, but Jill is not fucking around.
What the hell are you doing?
Kicking my ass! Do you mind?
With her last bit of energy, Jill lays herself down next to a dead Sydney in an effort to create the perfect empathetic tragedy and become the famous sole survivor of the massacre. Of course, Jill's well-laid plans fail, Sydney's not actually dead, and is able to come and kill Ghostface in an arguably pretty ambiguous way. Except for the bullet to the head. The first undeniable yet subtle issue with this installment in the franchise is that they do not use Nick Cave's Red Right Hand in the soundtrack. That song was showcased in the first film, the second film, and the third film. And it has the perfect Scream vibe. Frankly, I think it's egregious that it was omitted from the fourth film. And no, I did not look up if there was some licensing problem or whatever. I don't care. It should have been in the fourth film. They should have figured it out. Hands down, though, the most frustrating thing that comes out of Scream 4 is nothing. Absolutely nothing. The entire film sets up an immaculate look at fame and media-obsessed teens. It builds and arguably perfects a group of younger characters that could go on to become legacy characters. And because her death is ambiguous, just remove the headshot. There's an opportunity to bring Jill back in the fifth and have her kill Sydney in the opening and then move forward with a new generation of killers and survivors. Now, before you crucify me for thinking that Sydney should have died in the opening of the fifth one, I'm sorry, but her time has come and gone. If you're honestly telling me you wouldn't have been entertained by an unhinged Jill coming to finish the job and killing Sydney in a gruesome, horrific way in the opening of the fifth, I don't know if I believe you. And Kirby's character was begging to be the next final girl. Instead, we had to wait an exorbitant amount of time for a fifth Scream movie that honestly felt very separated from the original universe. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed the fifth and sixth Scream movies, but it took me a while to get on board and forgive them for not continuing the story of the fourth. And then just as I started really enjoying the new direction the franchise was taking, they fired Melissa Barrera for having human empathy. But we don't have time to unpack all that.
What about my ending?
To wrap up, Scream 4 is a masterpiece, Jill Roberts is terrifying, I miss Wes Craven, and fuck Dimension Films. See y'all next time.